Hello there and welcome back to part 5 of my Snowman Survivor tutorial done in Godot. In this one we're going to be looking at making bullets and making a gun that can shoot those bullets. Like before, we're going to make a bullet as a new scene, so just click on New Scene. The scene node that we're going to use for this is going to be an Area 2D. The Area 2D is perfect for being able to move around, but also being able to detect collisions with it. This is one of the reasons why you would use this Area 2D node. So I'm going to add a child node of that for a sprite so that I can actually see it. So that's a Sprite 2D node. The Sprite 2D I'm going to use was in that Kenny Assets pack, so I know it's in here somewhere, so I'm going to use the load option and just dig into the PNGs, and it's a little thing that looks like a diamond, which should be somewhere down the bottom of my, there we go, this one here, this map tile, and click open. So I know previously we scaled these, so I'm going to scale these ones as well, and I'm also going to just make this a scale of 0.5 so it's nice and small. The Area 2D you'll see is still complaining over here, so the reason is it needs an actual shape, so I'm going to add a child node of collision shape 2D and then just make sure to choose the shape. I know it's a diamond, but I'm just going to use a circle shape 2D that approximates the size of it, and that will be the collision. So now it's pretty happy. I'm going to rename this to bullet right now, and then I'm just going to make sure that we save this in the scenes folder. So we have bullet.tscn because we're going to spawn this in later on. Before I do, I would like to put a script on this. The one thing a bullet really needs to know is its direction, and that's basically what I want to be able to do. The bullets control themselves, and they'll need a script to do that. So we're going to add the bullet script. I'm going to change the location just so that I keep everything organized and put the bullet script inside the scripts folder and click open. The inherit Area 2D allows us to still be able to move it around, but that allows us to be able to use these collisions that are part of it. So just click create and we're ready to go. So I think that the bullet needs a couple of variables. I'm going to make a variable called speed, and that's going to be the speed of the bullet. I'm just going to default that to something like 600. We're also going to create another variable for direction. Now I want this one to be a vector 2, so if I do the colon and say vector2, then I can set this also to a standard thing like the right direction. So those two variables are the two things that we're going to need in order to be able to move once the bullet spawns in. We do want it to move. We don't need the ready function in this one. We may use it later on, but we're just going to move every frame inside of this process. And we've got this delta as well, which is the length of time that since the last frame, and we're going to use that so that we move frame independent. When you can look this up in the help, so if you control click on Area 2D you can dig down, but there's a function called translate which basically moves by a vector. That vector we're going to calculate based on the speed and the direction. So all we're going to do is we're going to say direction times speed times delta. So that will make it so that it's going to move 600 pixels per second because we're multiplying it by delta, and that's the number of seconds since the last time we ran the process function. So I'd love to test this before we write any more code. So if we jump back to the level and go into 2D and we just find this bullet scene, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put one over to the left of the player here and just save that scene, and then we'll play this scene and we should see that the bullet shoots off to the right. So let's get rid of it off the scene because we know that it works as expected, and we're going to start making a gun. So again, we're going to make a new scene. This one's just going to be a standard node 2D. We're going to drop it on as a child of the player. I'm going to rename that to gun, and then I'm going to add the timer into this. So we've done this before in the somewhere else in our code. So the timer, again, we're just going to click on auto start, and we're going to hook up the timer's timeout into the gun. The gun obviously is going to need a script, so click on gun, click on add script. I'm going to change the location so that they're all in the right place inside of scripts, and click gun and create. So we're going to make a gun script in here, and that's going to be in charge of spawning in the bullet. We don't really need anything in here at all, but we will need to know about the bullet. So I'm going to create a variable, and I'm going to do this a different way to the last time. Var, sorry, get that one right. Bullet prefab equals, and then we're going to use the preload function, and we're just going to load the scene that we made the bullet.tscn, so we know what one we're going to spawn in. And quickly just going to save inside of the scenes the gun scene. Now all we need to do is hook up this signal, the timeout signal, to a script on the gun. So we're just going to click on the timeout, double click on that, and click connect, and we're going to connect it up to the gun. It'll be called on timer timeout. Click connect, and there's our little function. This is effectively where we are going to spawn a bullet. So the simplest way to spawn a bullet is we just create ourselves a a variable to hold our new bullet, and then we make it equal to the bullet prefab dot instantiate. That will make us a brand new one. All we need to do is we can set it any properties that we want for this. I know my bullet by default will go right, so I'm just going to leave it at that. We're going to keep it super simple, and we'll come back and improve this in a second. But we're just going to add child of bullet, and that will add it to the gun, and the bullet should hopefully just shoot off to the right hand side. So to make it, to test it, what I'm going to do is go to my player scene, and we're going to actually just drop this whole gun script onto the player here. So the gun tscn, just drop it straight onto the player and save the player now. So when I go back to the main level, my player will also have a gun. So if I click play, what we should have is that every second we fire a bullet to the right, which is not bad. Now one little issue that you'll see is that when my player moves up and down, because the bullets are children of the player, when the player moves up and down, so do the bullets. So let's quickly adjust our code just a touch, just to improve that. So if we go back into the gun and drop into this gun script, we do want to add a child, but when we add a child like this, we're just adding it to the parent here, which is the gun. We could go a long way around and go up a couple, or we could just use the function. Now this doesn't look great, but trust me, it works. So getTree.root gets the root of the scene that you're in. So in this level scene, when this script here calls getTreeRoot, it's going to go right up to the level, and it will make a child of the level. So getTree.root.addChild will add a child to the root scene, or to the root node inside of this scene, and hopefully that should work. It looks horrible, and I wish there was a better way of doing it in Godot, but there just isn't. So now what we're getting is we're getting the player moving around. The bullets now you can see are spawning in, and because they're a child now of the level, they don't move around with the player, so they don't get spawned in at the right place. So let's fix that with one simple line of code too. So back in this script, we just want to set our brand new bullet. We'll set its position to be equal to the global position of this node. So it's the gun which is on the player, and that moves around with the player. So that should sort it. If we save this and hit play, what you should see is that the bullet fires off to the right, and because we've set its position to the global position of the player, it spawns itself in directly in line with the player. Now one of the cool things about the way we did this is the bullet, as we know, also has a direction. So if we say bullet.direction equals, and we set the direction, what we're doing is we're setting the direction on the spawned in bullet. Remember the bullet script, if we look back at the bullet script, the bullet has this direction variable that by default gets set to right. But when we spawn a bullet in, we can actually spawn it in any direction that we want. So if I just said vector2.left and saved that, what we should be able to do is spawn the bullets in the other direction. So the bullets are independent of the player now, and when you spawn one in, when the gun spawns one in, it can tell it what direction that is. But what if you wanted to spawn in more than one bullet? Well, what we can do is, rather than just copy paste code and change one thing, let's use our programming skills and create a function from this. So down the bottom of here, we're going to create a function, and we're going to say spawn bullet, something like that. And what we're going to do is we're going to give this a parameter, and this parameter is going to be let's say direction, and we're going to make this a vector2 direction. And then this this spawn bullet will be able to basically copy and paste this code, Control X like this and Control V over here. But when we call it, we're going to pass it in a direction, so we don't actually need to hard code this here. We're going to just use the variable that's passed to it. So we're just going to say direction right here. So we'll call it now in here, call the spawn bullet just by its name. So we're just going to say spawn bullet, and we're going to pick a direction. We're going to say vector2 dot up this time, just to prove that it is actually different. So running this, what we'll have is we'll be able to have the create bullet, or the spawn bullet function, is able to be called multiple times, and that's much easier. So say you wanted to spawn bullets in 4 different directions, so we could just say spawn bullet again, and we're going to say vector2 dot right, and we're going to say spawn bullet again, spawn bullet, and let's do a vector2 dot left, and the last one spawn bullet, and this one, what do I not have? Vector2 dot down. These are obviously vector2, so you don't necessarily have to have the up, down, right and left, the default constants. You could have a vector2, so you could say vector2, and then you could just pass in values like 0.2, 0.3, and that would be an equally valid vector2 that you could pass in. But this is just a good way of doing this very basic stuff. So let's just play this. What you'll see now is that my player will actually fire those 4 bullets, so hopefully that's pretty cool. Now we have a really functional gun right now, but back in my early design, I did want to be able to shoot a certain number of bullets. So I'm going to create a variable up the top here and create number of bullets. My son actually suggested this to me, that we could just do it as a mildly complex algorithm that takes this value, whatever this value is, so another script could change this, for example, and then just shoots that number of bullets, whatever that is. Now, it's a wee bit complicated, but I'll try and explain as I go. So what we're going to do is create a function called shoot, and this function is going to take it's actually going to take this value, it's going to use this value, so it's going to shoot that number of bullets. Now, with 1, it's going to be pretty simple, but you could have 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 11, as many as you wanted actually, and all we really need to do is be able to shoot that number of bullets using a for loop. So you will remember that every bullet can have a direction, so I'm going to create a default direction of right, and then we're going to enter this this for loop. So we're going to say for I in range, and then num bullets. So that will loop num bullets time. If you're fairly confident with Python or with GDScript, this shouldn't look too complicated. So this this for loop will loop. I'll just spawn a bullet at this point here. We spawn a bullet with the spawn bullet function, and we can pass it in direction just like this. So that will work. So whatever value num bullets has, it will spawn that number of bullets. It's going to be pretty hard to see because they're all going to be going in the same direction. So I could make this 4, for example, and we'll run it, and we won't see any oops, I forgot to change this bit of code. So I'll make this 4. Rather than this, we're just going to call the shoot function. So on the timer timeout, we're going to just call this shoot function down here. So this will create 4 bullets. Sadly, all 4 bullets are in the same direction. So all we really need to do is be able to work out a way of kind of like rotating that direction after we shoot after we shoot 1 bullet. So we just need to basically rotate this direction value after we spawn a bullet. Now, you have a cool function where we can just say direction equals the current direction dot rotated. Now, rotated needs to know a value. It needs to know how much to rotate this vector to by. Control click on this and you'll see it takes a single angle. Now, the only complicated thing is the angle is in radians. So radians is 2 pi radians is 360 degrees or 1 full rotation. So if we have our center point and we have our direction, if we are dividing by 2, so say we want to shoot 2 bullets, what we need to do is we need to make 2 times pi. We need to divide that by the number that we want to shoot. So 2 divided by pi, so that would equal to pi, which is approximately 3.14 radians. So if we're only using 2, then we need to divide this full rotation, which is 2 pi, by the number that we want to shoot. So with 2 pi radians, 1 would shoot in this direction and 1 would shoot in this direction. Equally, if we had 4, it would be 2 times pi, and we would divide that by 4, which would be approximately, that's whatever, 3.1 versus 1.2 radians, which would end up being actually 90 degrees. So every time it would be 90 degrees. So that would be 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps, and then it would be all the way back to the 4th. So that's all we really need to do. 2 times pi divided by 4, and we rotate the direction by that every single time. And what it looks like in code is I'm actually going to calculate the step. When we run the shoot function, we should already know what num bullets is. So I'm going to create a variable and I'm going to call it step, and I'm going to make it equal to 2 times pi. So the pi is actually pi, just like that. That's a constant inside of Godot, and we divide it by the number of bullets, and that's pretty much it. We will be able to then rotate by step every single time. So got this value and we rotate by step, and in theory this should work. So I've done bullets set as 4, and let's just test to see if it works. So as you can see, we are shooting in all 4 directions because we're shooting round by that step, rotating round by that step every single time. The cool thing about this now is that obviously we could make this any value we want. For example, we could make this 8 and we should shoot 8 bullets and they'll be automatically distributed around the player. So it's a pretty cool function. It's maybe not exactly beginner friendly, but hopefully that makes it really reusable, and hopefully you've understood enough to be able to follow along and get this. So in the next video we will be making the snowmen detect the collisions by the bullets and make them disappear. So stick around for the next video. I'll see you there.